This generation under so much pressure, held to a standard impossible to measure. Without guidance, they suffer. No father in sight, no love from their mother. Not the fin for the one in the mirror. Self-image distorted, can't get no clearer. Damn, lost souls devoured by the streets. Ain't no fairy tales or yellow bricks by their feet. Only crack vials and shell casings. Looking for hope, but they still waiting. And I implore you to never give up. And like Pac said, keep your head up, and when your back's up against the wall, keep your boots to the ground and stand tall. Hold on and be strong and go against all odds, and keep your faith in God.
Today's spotlight is Juice Me, a cold pressed juicery. Juice Me promotes healthy living, health conscious thinking, weight loss, boosts immunity, fights disease and infection, and cleansing. There are 7 options to choose from: Detox Daily, Sunshine, Spinapple, Fat Burner, Beat Body, Skin Me, and Spicy Lemonade. In addition to these 7 options, you can also purchase a 3-day detox program, which includes 18 juices, 3 immunity shots, and 3 lemon lime waters. So if you're interested in purchasing any of these all natural juices, call 267-225-6687 or follow Juice Me on Instagram at juiceme_please.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Liberated Mind Show. I'm Kay, she's Karen, that's James. And today we will be speaking about effective parenting tips. So sit back, strap in, get ready for episode 9.
So let's jump right into the topic. The first question is, how vital is it to avoid parenting based on what has been passed down from generation to generation?
I think it's really vital to examine the way that you were raised, because sometimes there's things that are not effective ways of raising a productive child who is emotionally and spiritually and intellectually balanced. So there's, things that, for example, like if your parents, if you got a bad grade or something in school and, you brought home that grade and your parents were upset because you didn't score as high as you would have liked to, or what they would have wanted you to score. So you don't want to make that child feel like they're a failure because they might have gotten a C instead of a A or B plus. So you kind of, instead of scolding and chastising your child, you should sit down with them and try to see why they weren't able to meet those expectations, instead of just jumping the gun and making them feel horrible. Because if you really think about it, they already feel horrible because they weren't able to meet that expectation. So instead of making them feel horrible about themselves, let them know that, okay, I'm willing to listen to what the reasons were why you weren't able to achieve higher scores on this test, and then let them know that if there is anything that you can do as a parent to try to help them score better grades, then you're willing to help them achieve those grades. And that can mean getting a personal tutor, or that can mean you personally sitting down with your child and giving them that and investing that time. So so that's like my perspective on that.
Yeah, definitely some great points there. What about you, Kay?
Just repeat that question. So I want to try and tackle it directly. I don't So I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you're asking.
All right. So the question is, how vital is it to avoid parenting based on what has been passed down from generation to generation?
To avoid it, the way I'm interpreting the question, I'm assuming that it's addressing, I guess the negative aspects, not necessarily the positive aspects.
Yeah, exactly.
In that case, okay. So in that case, I'd say it's crucial. A cycle has to stop at some point, and I feel as though most things, what do they say? It's like trauma. I guess it depends on type of trauma someone has dealt with. There are people that may be raised in atmospheres at which abuse may have been present, and therefore that's all that they know. They don't necessarily know the difference between love versus abuse because they intertwine the two. So I believe that it's important that in those instances, those people, they need to seek out some type of is it I guess you can say just seek out some type of help from outward and some counseling for them to differentiate the two, because otherwise that cycle could continue for generations to come. So I believe once I know, especially in households, whether they be Black households, Latino households, we tend to keep whatever occurs in the house inward, but there is a time where you must seek outward help. And I believe if that's taken into account, we can break the cycles for bad parenting and improve upon that. So I hope I answered that.
Yeah, definitely. Y'all made some really great points. The next question is, why is it important to incorporate coaching into parenting as opposed to having a strictly dictatorship style?
Well, when you think about coaching, you think, football, basketball, a sport. But coaching in a sense of the way that a coach helps you achieve what it is that you want to achieve on that field, on that on that court, or wherever. You have that coach is not giving you the direction in a way that you have to do this, or it's the highway. It's just like, I'm going to lead you to or give you the skills that you need in order to win this game, but it's up to you to take the ball and not drop it, and get all the way to that end goal. So is the method of coaching to the method of dictating? It's two different type of techniques. One gives you winners that are proud to be a part of that whole, and then the other one is dictatorship. So you have in any instance where someone is dictating to another person, there's always going to be resentment. There's always going to be resistance. There's always going to be a back and forth, like a force, like a negative force behind it. So when you have, when you're coaching a child, it's more like let's say I'm potty training my son, and my son peed on himself at school. And instead of me understanding like this is a process for him, I'm teaching him how to do something that he doesn't know how to do yet, and his reasoning mind is not able to say, oh, well, I peed on myself. Oh, oh my God, like I'm in trouble. That child, if I pick my child up and scold him in front of everybody and tell him, oh, why did you pee on yourself? You shouldn't have did that. Like, that child really needs you to say, okay, well, you peed on yourself. I understand. You're just starting this. So I know that mistakes happen, but I would really like for you to, when you see that you have to go to the bathroom, I need you to stop what you're doing, go to the bathroom, and then you can go back to doing what you're doing. That type of style is giving them more confidence in what they're doing. So they're looking to say, oh, okay, well, mommy didn't yell at me and daddy didn't yell at me, but I do understand that I could have done better. And then like that begins to translate in their minds. So they're able to, next time they're doing the pee-pee dance, they'll think like, oh, I better not make another mistake because I was just, given the lecture or coached by mom to not do that again because, I need to be a big girl or a big boy or whatever. So, like with that, it is when you're dealing with a child, it's like a new computer system. Like whatever you're programming into their minds is how they would react to anything else that comes in their direction later on in life. So I just think there's times when you can. There are going to be times when you're going to have to say, oh, you can't do that or you can't do that. Of course, like when you're a parent, you got to sometimes like put your foot down because not every situation is a situation where you want to say, okay, well, you shouldn't have did that, and sometimes you have to get aggressive, but you have those times when you don't need to do that and you don't need to break your child's spirit. Because if what you're trying to do is get them to do a certain thing and do it right, you don't want to keep telling them, oh, you did it wrong. You want to keep instilling that positive reinforcements.
Right. I agree. Coaching versus, dictatorship. If someone's dictating, that's them just saying this is what to do. There's no reasoning behind it. And there's really on the recipient end, there's no understanding of why this person is saying that. All I know is that they say it, it's a must, I must do. Whereas in coaching, an effective coach, like you said, Karen, with positive reinforcement, they will point out, a weakness will be pointed out, but the purpose of pointing out that weakness is to improve upon. So therefore, if a child has, like for instance, my daughter's very emotional, and the minute she doesn't get her way, she wants to start crying. And so one thing that I've done is I told her, I said, hey, take 5 deep breaths. Let's get it together. I said, okay. So rather than get frustrated at a situation, take your 5 deep breaths and then sit back and try and do that task again, because she gets very frustrated. When it comes to, she's left-handed, it's difficult for me, I'm right-handed, it's difficult for me to teach her how to write left-handed. So when it comes to certain letters, it's from a different angle. So me trying to train her in that way, she gets frustrated. And rather than scold her and say, no, that's not it, I sit there and I try and work with her to walk through that. So as long as we also recognize like our child's emotions as well, that's something else with coaching. Like I said, coaching is like with you each step of the way, whereas dictating is just demanding. It's just give me more, give me more, give me more, which will eventually cause psychological issues. So it's I believe coaching, especially effective coaching, it outweighs. There's more positivity to it than with the old adage of "do as I say, not as I do," which does not set an example. So that's how I feel.
So the next question is, how can open communication cultivate healthy relationships between parents and children?
Go ahead, you start, Kay.
Okay, so I feel, I mean, it's like with anything, if you have open communication, um, your child feels compelled and at ease when they're going through anything, that they can, come to you in a time of crisis. Um, I mean, some people may see it like old school. I think I have some elements of old school, but I try to keep them in check though. So I still, just because you have open communication and open dialogue doesn't mean that there's no boundaries. You still have your set boundaries. So I believe it's necessary to just reinforce those boundaries at the same time. But your child should be able to, have a dialogue with you. Growing up, I believe I can't recall any situation to where I felt as though I couldn't necessarily bring it up to my parents if I wanted to, but I know that there are situations where some children may not feel, at ease in doing so. And I don't know if that's based upon, but I mean, it could be based upon the subject matter, depending upon, I guess, certain things when it comes to male female talks or whatever. But at the same time, I feel as though as long as there is that, just knowing that, hey, guess what, if I have an issue, I can speak with mom or dad. I believe it's a good thing to just have there in the back of your mind, because if your child realizes that they can speak to you with about most things, I wouldn't say everything, because there are things that people still would want to shield from their parents. Even to this day, there's still some things I won't speak with my parents about. But I don't know. I guess that's the best way that I can describe it without, keep reiterating the same thing. But I feel as though it's a positive within a parent-child dynamic.
Yeah, so I believe in open communication with your kids, and starting from a really early age is the best way to cultivate it is through trust. If your child does not trust you, your child will not open up to you. So building that trust and understanding that your child is a person, not just someone who you tell to go to sleep, wake up, eat, and take a bath, and all these things. But you have to look at them as the individuals that they are. And with that being said, trust is one thing that opens those doors for that open communication to take place. So as long as you cultivate that trust within your child will come to you with just about anything.
Yeah, and just that point that you pointed out, they are people, and I think I remember growing up, I would always hear, "Your child, you stay in a child's place" or whatever. It's as if what I had to say based upon it's what do they call it? Ageism. It's not necessarily a disrespectful thing if a child has an opinion about something. I think sometimes we as parents may take it as such, but it's just the way that kids deliver certain things. I just feel as though they may not necessarily know how to deliver it, but we should keep in mind like you just said, that they are people, and attached to this person is emotions and feelings. So we have to be cognizant of that and say, okay, all right, it's appropriate to speak with mommy or daddy, but this is the way in which you do so. And you can speak on just about anything. It's just, I think it matters in the way in which it's delivered, in which they approach it. Just wanted to throw that in there.
And just to chime on that, that's taught. That's taught in a way that is like that learning that takes place, that is oh my God, I can't think of, when you learn from your environment and you learn from your caregivers and you learn how to react to certain things because this is the way that your parents react to these things. So all that is embedded into the subconscious mind, whether you're a young child or you're a young adult or an older person. You already have a set point. You have a set point as to how you're going to react to anything already, because the human brain is only a computer, and we program it through learned behavior. So whatever you're teaching your kids, or however you react to certain things, that's how you're teaching them how to react. So to say that is just to, yeah, certain subjects are not for kids to have an opinion on, because certain subject matters are not for kids. So, when a child jumps in and tries to give an opinion about something that is really out of that child's league, yes, it's appropriate for the parent to shut them down and immediately let them know that this is not for them. That's appropriate, because you don't want your kids also to be engaging in conversations that are inappropriate for their age. But it's a manner in which you do that. You don't just embarrass them in front of everybody and then, make them feel small and then think that later on they're going to trust you to talk to you, when this is the way that you've handled every situation that that is put in front of you, by shoving them to the side and saying, no, you have no voice. So you really have to be able to also give them that lead way to be able to have that open communication, because just because you want open communication doesn't mean that that's what you're going to get from your child, because it's really everything has its way that how things supposed to go. So you also have to remember, if you're programming this child to be quiet and be in a child's place and don't say nothing because it's not your place, then just know that later on in life, that child is going to feel the same way about you, and they're going to say, this is none of your business, and so we have to be very aware of the way that we're delivering certain things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Speaking of that, programming and, how the brain is a computer, creativity and skills are forged early in life. How does focusing in on children's abilities and supporting them to help to fortify their self-confidence and, wait, I'm sorry, 3, 2, 1. How does focusing in on children's abilities and supporting them help to fortify their self-confidence and desire to succeed?
Well, creativity and looking for your kids and what they're talented in, it's very important, because that later on, and it's not even the talent or the creativity itself, is the manifestation of it. So like when you're when your child is being creative, you're building confidence in that child. So now that child has that confidence to say, okay, well, I'm good at this. And then they continue to look for things that they're good at. Now they feel good about themselves. Like walking straighter, they're, you know, looking at you in your eyes, and whatever the case may be. And that gives them that confidence, so that moving forward, you continue to find more and more things, and that builds that confidence that that child needs. So definitely it's needed. It's needed because a lot of parents don't tend to look for the creativity and the talent that their child has. And sometimes we go all our lives without even figuring out what it is that we're good at. And then now you're in your 30s or your 40s and you're like trying to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I'm not happy in my job. I'm not happy with my career. I'm not happy with anything, because you never really got an opportunity to express that creativity and those good skills that you already naturally have. So confidence is a big thing, and creativity is definitely a confidence booster.
I was just thinking, like, when you mentioned talents, like, at what point do we say, hey, this is because people have talents, but certain talents don't earn checks. You know what I mean? So at what point do we say, hey, you know what? You're talented in that, but this is what you should focus on, versus going along with what your child necessarily finds. Like you said, your child can be talented and all right, case in point, let's say someone's very talented in art. Let's say that they can draw and paint very well. I've known people that have gone to colleges and majored in art who are struggling today. Now, that was a talent, and you could put that child through art school, what have you, but at the end of the day, they still need a survival skill, if you get what I'm going at. So I just feel as though, it's nice to focus on a talent. Some people are talented in academics, and then there are those who are talented outside of academics, maybe sports or what have you. But we know, statistically speaking, the chances of surviving off of those talents outside of academics is very competitive, and the amount of slots there are to succeed and live a fruitful life is very difficult. So at what point, I'm taking your question, but I'm also, like I said, I'm thinking about it, how it would relate to today with everything, because everything's going electronic, as we can see. So there's certain things that will be phased out. And it's just like, all right, with so much competition, what talent will be viable in the future to which your child, is able to live a productive life off of, or just the life they could survive off of?
Okay, so for instance, talent, yes, talent can be either rewarding, or it can just be just a pure talent that is just, is used, but not to pay the bills and not to bring in a living. But when you discover that you have a talent, you can use that talent in a creative way as well and make a living. Because creativity, and that's being used right now by a lot of people, and I just want to kind of just talk like yesterday, for instance, on Facebook, on Black-owned New Jersey, I seen a little girl. She had a lemonade stand, and I was just like, her parents are awesome. Like, this is just like genius, because it's not even the fact that she's making money. The money is a plus. You're building her confidence. You're building a businesswoman right now. Like, in the smallest of of ways, but you're cultivating her to think outside the box and be creative, and not only talent wise, but just creativity. Like I can make money by just being creative and by being myself and by having fun with it. So I think like when parents like chime in and I mean like hone in on their kids and what they're good at, because obviously the little girl must be good at making money and being entrepreneur. She has an entrepreneur spirit already, where and her parents are trying to, and maybe her parents are also entrepreneurs, so she's only like pretty much doing what she already sees going on in her own household. So I think like creativity just comes in and says, okay, you may not be using this idea and it may not be as viable, but you tried, and and with every failure comes a success, no matter especially if you're determined and you continue to find ways to be creative and still use it to your advantage.
Thanks. That was a good example. Yeah, that okay. I see it from that point of view with the creativity. The adult steering them that way. So I totally get it now. Thanks.
Like she can look back and say, I was selling lemonades way before, like I was like 6-7 years old selling lemonades. Like I was already she already has her little business going, and thanks to her parents who are raising her to be like that, because they see that that's something that she enjoys. So they're only supporting her, because let's be honest, that lemonade stand, those decorations, that uniform, all those clothes probably cost more than what she making at that lemonade stand in a day. But her parents are invested in her. They're supporting her vision.
Excellent point.
Yeah, not only that though, it's like she's actually gaining skills as well. Like she's learning how to speak to the public. She's learning how to sell a product. She's
learning how to save money.
Yeah, learning how to market.
Mm-hmm.
She's learning the importance of what is it? Like cost and the cost of something to sell something, and then also the demand for it. And it's all a lot of skills that she's learning right now at a young age that she's gonna be ahead of the game when it comes to like her friends. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. All right, so the next question is, well, as parents, you are your children's first superhero and role model. Why is it important to parent by example and not just empty words?
Well, that's totally important, because you can't tell your kids don't do a certain thing, but you're doing it, and then you expect them not to in the future, or in the present. Like you can't tell your kids, go to school, get an education, get a good job, and be a good person, and then you're not a good person. Like they're not, like kids are not programmed to go by what you're saying. They're more impressed by what you're doing. So when you're doing the things that you're doing, that's what you're pressing. That's the impression that you're leaving in their impressionable minds. And that's the program that you're programming them. So when you think that, oh, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to smoke weed in the car while my child is in the car, or any bad example that you can set for your kids, and then expect that child not to do that in the future is just absolute insanity. So you got to really be able to be conscious enough to say certain things are not for your child to see. Even if you do certain things, just make sure that your child is not around when you do certain things, because you can't expect them to say, I'm not going to do that later. They're not even going to think that you did it before. It's just going to be programmed in their minds that that's the example that you gave them, so that's what they're going to do. It's going to be embedded, and it's going to be in their subconscious. So they're going to, most of the time, and not all the time, because I'm a big me myself, I can say I've seen a lot of negativity, and I've been around a lot of negativity, but I was that one that it didn't affect me in that manner, because I was able to see what I didn't want. But not all kids have that ability to decipher the differences between good and bad, and especially in peer pressure situations.
Right, I agree 100% with that. It's what they say, actions speak louder than words. And I mean, we can just look at it the most basic. Like if you look at like the animal kingdom, there's no set like verbal communication we necessarily see. Everything's based off what offspring see. They emulate. So yeah, like that goes back to our first question or second question about coaching versus dictating. So yeah, it falls in the same line. It's like, okay, you have to set an example. And if your child, I mean, basically we know just through interacting even with adults today, what type of home training they had based upon how they handle certain situations and how they interact with people. So yeah, it's very important that it's based upon, you have to, yeah, your actions have to show your intentions. It just can't be you just preaching with no set example. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said.
Yeah, I definitely agree because, like you said, I'm sure we all come in contact with those people that like
Mm-hmm.
they wasn't raised around that. The positive actions being there, they was always they was influenced by the negativity that they saw, and it stayed with them throughout their lives, and now they're the jerks and the assholes that we encounter
Mm-hmm.
on a daily. So like, yeah, that's very important. All right, so as parents, what steps do you take to implement and teach your children history of self?
You want to start, Kay?
Yeah, I'm trying to dissect it. So it's repeat that one more time if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. What steps do you take to implement and teach your children history of self? Like to be self-aware of who they are and, our history and things like that. Stuff that they won't get in school.
Okay. The steps, I mean, the earlier the better. I believe if you start off with teaching them about who they are, their ancestry, history, as far as what I'm trying to think of a good example, because I'm trying to think of a story of recent. I think all right, case in point. Around this time last year, my daughter was 3. She was in daycare. So she came home telling me about I think it was Black History Month. She came home telling me about Dr. King. And I said, what did you learn about Dr. King? She said, he was a dreamer. I said, oh, okay. Dreamer of what? He had a dream, and that was like the basis of what they taught. Granted, these are preschool age kids, but it's like I asked her what she learned as far as that part of history, and that's to the extent that they taught her. So it's my job and duty from there to take that and to elaborate upon it. So now if you ask her, she could at least tell you what he had a dream about rather than he's just a dreamer. So I think, like I said, the earlier that we institute that sense of, okay, this is who these people are, this is how it relates to you, and you just keep building upon that, I think it becomes easier to the point whereas you could even have a weekly thing. I know growing up, Sundays, even there were on Sundays. I know my sister and I, because of the language my father speaks, Yoruba, which is connected to Nigeria. If you unfamiliar, it's an ethnic group of, mainly found in Nigeria, but it's all over from Brazil to, there's Yoruba people everywhere, bottom line. But I know when we would go over lessons with the language, it would be like every Sunday, we'd sit down, take out the easel, and we would go over alphabet, the basic words, things of that nature. So it was instituted early on, and to the point where now I now incorporate that with my daughter, where I haven't done the like Sunday class style, but what I do is teach her words here and there to the point where she's asking me, oh, how do you say this and that? How do you say that's in Yoruba? How do you say that? So it's like, this is I believe it's her birthright, that's something that she wants to know. So it is my responsibility to at least put that there to where, okay, at a stage she can take it upon herself to explore it on her own when she's old enough to do so. So yeah, that's why I'm saying the earlier the better. And I just think it's something that I believe it is a birthright for us to, pass that knowledge on, because there are other people who do it with theirs, and you see the world of difference it makes down the road with a sense of purpose and being.
As far as me, the steps that I take to implement in teaching history of self, for me, with my daughter, I mainly always answer things as the questions came, and also make corrections when I seen that corrections needed to be made. Especially with when your kids first start learning about the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and the Columbus discovered America, and all these things. So what I would do with Armani when she was younger, I would just tell her the truth. I would tell her the truth, even with because my family is primarily Catholics and Christians. So our family does celebrate these traditions, like the Christmas and the Easters and the Thanksgiving and all these things. So I would always tell Armani the actual history behind every single holiday. Like, I wouldn't just tell her, to blindly think that Santa Claus was going to come down the chimney and he was going to bring presents. First of all, she was smart enough to know that we lived in the projects and we had a fire escape. We ain't have no chimney. So, with that being said, like I always made every situation teachable. I will always tell her certain things, like, I would always make the corrections. Anytime she was learning something in school, I would correct it at home and tell her the histories behind everything. So step by step with Major now, they have more things available for these kids now, where you can buy books to teach them about themselves. You know, they got different things that are more useful for the smaller kids and their little brains. So I'm excited about teaching Major about himself and letting him know everything that that he needs to know. One funny story. So one day Major was like, "Mommy, I'm turning brown." So I'm like, I'm like, Major, yeah, because you're a black boy. So he was like, but Mommy, I don't want to be a black boy. I want to be a pink boy. So I was like, Major, you can't be a pink boy. Like, you were pink when you were a baby because you had just came out. Like, you can't be pink. Because he looks at his baby pictures and he thinking he's supposed to still look the same. So when he looked at himself, he looks at his skin color, he's like, but I'm supposed to be pink, Mommy. And I'm like, no. So I had to explain to him in a way that he could understand that he is a black boy, and his skin is going to continue to get more and more dark as the time goes on. So that was funny. So that's it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely important, because even we encounter, once again, adults that clearly don't know self at all. They never had the lesson. I'm not even sure they even learned the fake history in school, because they just be oblivious to everything. So the next question is, while family time is crucial for the family unit and for the children to see the love and interaction, how do you go about devoting time to each child individually, and why is this so important as a parent?
Well, the kids need to feel that they are individually important to each parent. Like, kids need to have that sense of belonging. And when you don't cultivate that relationship with your children, to for them to be able to know, like, Mommy loves you, Daddy loves you, and not just saying it, but just taking time out of your busy schedule, and even if it's just 15-20 minutes of playtime with one child, sitting down and playing with them 15-20 minutes, I promise you that makes a big difference. That 15-20 minutes that you take, and there's no there's no interruptions. Your cell phone, you're not looking at your cell phone, you're not texting, you're not social media. Those 15-20 minutes are just focus on that child, that over time, those 15-20 minutes turn into like treasure. Like, like your kids will be so happy and so connected to you that there's nothing that anybody out there can say or do to take that attention away from that child, because you've already you invested in that child. Because, like, it's not just about money. You got to invest time, because time is money. And, like, you're giving your child the most precious thing that we have on this earth is time, because time is the only thing right now. Like, later on, the longer and longer our time here is diminishing. So as long as, like, you can be conscious enough to say, okay, like, my child needs me, you don't wait until he starts fighting in school and getting suspended and to start showing them that affection. You have to start doing it when they're before that even happens, because those things will be very far and few if they ever do happen, because you and your child are so connected.
Yeah, that's a great point because I have two little ones, 4-year-old and a 9-month-old. And what I'm learning now is um, it went from like 3.5 years of just focusing on one being. So now it's difficult in trying to balance because the baby needs me for literally everything. And then the 4-year-old is like, what about me? So I've even found myself in situations like, case in point today, since work from home, my 4-year-old knows what time I'm usually off the clock, around 4:30. But today ran over almost an hour. She's like, well, Daddy, when are you going to spend time with me today? So that's what she asked me. And I'm like, once I'm finished work, I will. So as soon as I was finished work, she's like, you done work? I said, yes. So we spent time, and literally all she wanted to do was listen to Michael Jackson.
Aww.
That's it. She's like, oh, let's play Dance Machine. And she likes to do the robot dance to it. So that was literally it. And it was about 15, 20 minutes. And then I said, all right, I got to pick your sister up now because her sister was playing on the floor just watching. So it's like learning to balance the two. Because, I mean, I'm sure, like for example, like what I can say is the youngest one, she is more attached to her mother than me. And it's like, okay, me being an adult knowing, okay, she likes to spend time. I can only imagine with a child, if you just focused on one, what type of feeling that child will then have if you're not, showing them, because they don't know how to process it. They don't understand, hey, this is what it's going to be like from now on. It's never going to be like what it used to be. So, yeah, and like you said, it's just it helps in bonding, and like you said, times. Those are memories that will always be there. And I mean, the great thing about today is everyone's got a camera. Where I know when we grew up, you had to have money to have a camera.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have any videos from when I was 1 through 10. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like I said, I think it's very important. You just find a way to balance, that work life, the home life, and make time for your children, because children need to know that they're loved. That they're being loved, and just something as simple as sitting down and even putting on one of their goofy little hats or whatever, it makes a world of difference. And that's something that they cherish. And like you said, once they're older, those are the types of things that they remember.
Because they're not going to look back and say, well, my dad only used to spend 15, 20 minutes with me. Like, she's not going to look back and say that. She's going to look back and say, like, me and my dad always had a lot of fun. She kids are not keeping track of certain things. Like, so you can, like, children are so easy to please because they don't know the dynamic of time. Like, they don't understand it. Only we do, because we have obligations. They don't have obligations, so they have no worries. And those 15, 20 minutes, and I remember when Major was maybe about 1 year old, and I was working in, I was doing private duty nursing, but I was taking a preschooler to school every day and sitting with him because he had seizure disorder and he was in a wheelchair. So I would sit with him every day, and the special needs teacher, because all the kids were basically normal kids, but that had disabilities. So the preschool teacher gave me that advice. Like, I asked her, I was like, how can I start teaching my child how to read at 1 year old? Like, how can I start that process? I'm like interested in my son learning how to read at an early age. So she said, the best way that you can do is every day spend 5-10 minutes of flashcards every day. The five, because their attention span is only goes but so far. So you're not going to get a lot of time from them anyway. So 15-20 minutes to them seems like forever. So you can get a lot done in a very small amount of time. And then, try to not put too much pressure on them either. Like, if they're tired and they've moved on, let them move on and then come back to it later. So I've gotten a lot of good advice over the years, especially because working and being a pediatric nurse. So just want to pass on that knowledge to somebody else.
That's some good information. So basically it's being present over giving presence. That's what I got from that time really matters. Mm-hmm. All right, so I have one more question. From your perspectives, what differences do you see in parenting by a younger person compared to parenting by an older parent?
I can say, I think I fall in that realm of older parent. So it's like, for me, I can only speak of me. I don't know how my wife would speak upon it, but I think me being a parent at this stage in life was probably more appropriate for me based upon maturity and just being more stable. And what it did is it also allows me to look at life situations for what it is, rather than having to be dependent upon my parents. Because I know if I would have had, let's say even maybe 10 years ago, I probably would have been running to my parents for some help with, hey, what do I do in this situation? Not that I don't seek out guidance, but I would have been more ignorant. So it was like just being around family members and friends who had children prior to me having children. It allowed for me to gain some type of perspective as to, okay, that's something I like. I like that idea. And I even reach out to my daughter's godfather a lot about since this case in point, since this quarantine, and she's been out of school, it's been crazy. So what I did is I asked him, I said, well, what do you do that works? And he just had his third child. So he was telling me, he's like, listen, like Karen had mentioned about the children's attention span. He said, listen, this is what I find to be the best thing to do. And he told me sight words. I never even thought of it. Get the flashcards with words, and boom, she's picking those words up like that. Whereas before, I would just try and have her write it and then say, hey, tell me what this is. But just her visualizing it now and seeing it on a card, she actually can read a little bit. So it's crazy. And like I said, that's me being older. If I were younger, I wouldn't have had resources like that to say, hey, what can I do to steer my child in this direction or that direction? I wouldn't have been mature enough. There's like I said, I'm just thinking about where I was mentally 10 years ago. There's a lot of stuff that would have been oversight. And it's just, I think it depends upon the individual. Some people, like I said, some people are, like I said, when I go on Facebook and I see some friends from high school, they have like 20-year-olds, and I'm just like, wow, I said, they're about to be free. That's what I see. I said, I'll be going to my daughter's graduation walking with a cane. That's the way I feel. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I think, like I said, it varies depending upon the person, but I think depends on your circumstances, but depends on your maturity level as well. Because like I said, there are some things you can learn Um, some things you have the luxury of sitting back and learning, and there's some things where you're younger, you're forced to learn because you don't have that. You don't have time to sit up and say, well, it's immediate. When you're a parent and you have a child, it's right there where you need to address it. So, like I said, I just think, I honestly think it just depends on that person and the circumstances surrounding them, because there's no one size fits all. That's my take on it.
I agree with that comment. I've always, I've taken my parenting from the parenting that I was requiring when I was younger. So whatever parenting that was lacking with me, and because I've always been a person that I analyze and watch and look and learn. So I take from my environment by that in that manner. So growing up and wanting certain things and not being able to see that in my own parents, I was able to look to see how I can provide those things for my daughter. So at a young age, even though I was young, I was very in tune with my daughter, because I mean, it was just something in me that I'm a mom now, so I have to figure things out. So even when I was carrying my daughter, the doctor, my gynecologist, was so impressed on how much I was, like how knowledgeable I was and how many questions that I asked, because that's like, even if I didn't know how to do a certain thing, just because I was younger, I looked for the answers. So there's always a means to an end. If you want something bad enough, you're going to find the answers. So, I, was able to do that because I was and because I'm naturally a person that yearns for knowledge. So learning learning to do things differently has always been a part of my DNA and part of who I am. So I'm always looking to better myself, even if I may, to someone else looking from the outside in, may say, "Oh, I know who Karen is," or I admire her. There's always, for me, there's always a way to there's always a way to improve myself. So improving my parenting, even though in my younger years, and being a young mom at 19 years old, I always look for the answers. Now with my son, being an older parent and being considered advanced maternal age when I had Major, I felt a little out of touch. I'm not gonna lie. I felt out of touch because I had already raised my daughter, who was on her way to college, and then now I have another baby. Not that I wasn't up for the challenge, but I was like definitely already very set and comfortable with the way that my life was. So, but nonetheless, he's going to get the same type of parenting and education from me, if not better, because I'm, like you said, I'm older now. So my perspective is yet even better than it was when I was younger. But to the younger parents, and my advice would be to them would be to look for ways to improve your parenting. They're out there. You just have to look for them, because if it doesn't resonate with the way that you would like to raise your children, you can always find different ways to go about it, and and like you said, Kay, asking friends who already have children, would they do? What would they do in a certain situation if they were faced with a certain situation, or if how did you potty train your child at at whatever age? Like when I started potty training Major, it was like potty training my daughter and potty training Major were completely two different things. Like with my daughter, she learned how to potty train before she was 2 years old, right? Like 22 months, literally. Like she was using the bathroom, had underwear on. I had no worries. Like she never peed in the bed. She never had any type of like accidents. With Major, we went through a few accidents, a little, and still to this day, just the other day he peed on himself because um, he gets so distracted with playing and doing what he's doing. He's over there doing the pee-pee dance, and sometimes I hear him in the room pacing back and forth, and I'm in here and I'm like, Major, go use the bathroom. Mommy, I don't have to use the bathroom. Major, go use the bathroom. And then 2 seconds later, he's rushing to the bathroom because he has to use it. So, like those situations are two different situations. When and it's still the same thing that you're teaching them, but you're teaching two different kids with two different personalities, two different genders. Yeah, with potty training Major didn't potty train until he was right before he started pre-K 3. That's when, like, literally, like 2 months before he was supposed to start pre-K 3, he was potty trained. So with boys and girls, like, you have your variations, like, they're different. So you got to treat them different.
Definitely. Or do either you have any final points or anything that you just want to, pass off? Any final word, final message?
The only thing I would have to say would be parenting is not an easy. It's not an easy job. It's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. It's going to be a lot of stress. At times it can be a love-hate relationship, because, kids just don't get it. They don't understand, sometimes you can be tired. Sometimes, especially with this coronavirus thing, sometimes Major stresses me out when he goes touching things, and then 2 seconds later he going like this and he doing this, and he like, and I'm like, corona, like there's corona all over your face now. Like, so it's just, certain those little, and they're very small little things like that just takes you all the way, like, to a place that you don't never even want to go to. So in the mornings, I have to tell him 20 times, go brush your teeth, go wash your face, go put your sneakers on, and I'm saying all that to say, like, the job in itself is, no one pays us. We don't get paid for being parents, but this is a job that we have to do for the betterment of our children. So when you're doing this, when you're raising your kids, you have to be very conscious of what you're giving them, what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're expressing yourself, like just being very conscious of every step of the process. And as long as, like, we're all going to make mistakes, no one's perfect. There's no handbook that tells us exactly how to be the perfect parent or the best parent. But I think, just, learning how to, be better parents, I think that's the first step. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. I mean, it's simple as said. There's no necessarily no handbook, and it's a learning experience. I think somebody has 10 kids, it's 10 different experiences. So it's just try to incorporate healthy ways and control temperament in situations. Sometimes that's one thing I learned is trying to reduce and yelling to get things done. Because just because you're yelling doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be done any faster. It's about instilling that need of it's about instilling. I can't think of the word right now, but it's just making them aware that, hey, this is why this is important to me and it needs to be done now, rather than yelling and threatening manner. So it's just hang in there. That's the biggest thing I can say. It's just hang in there and be patient, and just remember, no child asked to be here. That was your decision, my decision. That's the way you gotta look at it. And they depend upon us, for everything. So do the best that you can.
And also remember that there's only one child in the situation. Like you can have multiple children, but whoever you're dealing with right now, right then at that moment, just know that before you sits either a mother or father or both and a child. You can't stoop down to your child's level, because that child needs that leadership from you. So you can't just, act just like a child. There has to be one child in the room and one adult in order for, parenting to take place.
Very true. And there you have it. Thank you for joining us for another episode. We hope you received all the information in this episode. It was very important because, raising children is very important for our communities and for the future. So, as always, one accord, one love, peace.
Peace.
This generation under so much pressure, held to a standard impossible to measure. Without guidance, they suffer. No father in sight, no love from their mother. Nothing for the one in the mirror. Self-image distorted, can't get no clearer. Damn, lost souls devoured by the streets. Ain't no fairy tales or yellow bricks by their feet. Only crack vials and shell casings. Looking for hope, but